Brennan talking to one of the riders about getting lost, Jack Byers, who lives in Northern California now and races pigeons, I hear.
Well, the leaders usually don't get lost because they're up out of the dust. But the fellas that are back in the dust, they can get lost because they don't stay on the course. And if you don't stay on the course and follow the line, it's very easy to get lost in that big area out there.
Brennan with Steve Hurd about what he thinks is the worst danger. Nice hairdo, Steve.
I think hitting rocks are the worst thing. They get behind bushes, and if you don't see them, it can put you down pretty quick.
And Gary Conrad.
Well, the main thing, and especially as dusty as it's going to be today, is to get a good start and just work it from there and play it cool. Don't get overexcited where you're going to crash or anything if you can help it. And just keep a steady pace going.
The motorcycles were primarily big 650 Triumphs, BSAs, Nortons, and the two-strokes weren't all that popular yet. Everybody gets their tank card marked. Gary Preston, Jay and Roberts, one of the Lady Victors sponsoring club. Out to a smoke bomb, which is a pile of burning tires, which you probably can't do that anymore. It's a Le Mans start. Bikes, motors off. Most of them didn't have kickstands, so they propped them up with a stick. This is still one of my favorite shots. Was Nelson Tyler in the helicopter with Davy Jones as the pilot. Nelson invented the vibrationless helicopter mount, which prior to that, he just sort of hung out the door of the helicopter and got a real shaky picture. So this was like really revolutionary photography at the time. And Nelson was one of the few guys that could really make the thing work well. They could pre-run to the smoke bomb, so they had their own lines and whatnot. But once the smoke bomb, they'd never seen the course before. This is Buck Smith, who has since unfortunately passed away. Ride a big fire-breathing Triumph. Of course, funneled into a narrow canyon, and Buck Smith was the first guy through there. First guy to unload in the canyon was Howard Beach. We shot this in 16 millimeter. At the time, the video cameras were gigantic things that were really only good for the studio. And also with 16 millimeter, we could shoot in slow motion, which you couldn't really do in video. You can see these motorcycles didn't have a whole lot of suspension compared to modern bikes. I think Dick Mann put it perfectly though, when he said, you know, the old bikes we rode to the limit, but we weren't going that fast. The new bikes, they still ride to the limits, but they're going so much faster that when they unload, they've got a lot further to walk back to get their bike. Buck Smith was still leading. J.N. Roberts coming up through the pack with his football shoulder pads on. Nobody wore any armor in those days. Bill Fryan on a 250 Greeves. My youngest son Wade did the music for this 2005 version of the Desert Race. And my grandson Wes resurrected these old things and did a re-edit on them. So it's kind of all in the family. Kicking a big four-stroke that's hot 50 times is just like riding about 100 miles, especially when it's 100 degrees out. Once in a while, riding one of the desert races, you get so separated from the pack that you think you're lost, and by then the lime's all worn away, and a lot of people ended up getting way lost. And even if you aren't lost, sometimes you think you're lost and get sort of a semi-anxiety attack. Buck Smith still in the lead. Flagman out warning about a road crossing is dangerous. We talked to Dick Vick about the danger markings.
For danger marking, they'll put 3 line marks across a trail. For a road crossing, they put 6 marks across a trail. It's very important to stay on the trail. If you get off the trail, you will not see these danger marks, and it could be very disastrous.
The neat thing about desert racers, they always seem to be in a pretty good mood when they unload. A BSA 441 Victor, I had one of those things, had to be one of the worst motorcycles ever made, at least for the desert. Into the first checkpoint, it's Mike Burke, one of the checkers. Everybody's wondering where he came from. Followed by his buddy, Doyle Fields, another member of the checkers. Here was the original leader, Buck Smith. Followed by Gary Preston. J.N. Roberts coming through. All getting their tank cards marked. Mike Burke has also passed away, along with his buddy Doyle Fields. Across a dry lake, probably 100 miles an hour. We had like 20 cameras covering this thing. We had them spread out on the first loop, and then a plan to move them so they could also get on the second film on the second loop. So we had effectively about 40 different camera locations. And of course the helicopter was Nelson Tyler and Davy Jones, the pilot, who were just amazing what they could do. Buck Smith and Gary Preston. There goes J.N. Roberts on his Husqvarna, which was kind of a new motorcycle at the time for the United States. Turns out that Mike and Doyle had taken a road and cut the course, so they were eventually disqualified. It seemed like every desert race there'd be some kind of a bottleneck where everyone would get jammed up. That was kind of part of the deal. The amazing thing about some of these bottlenecks were I never saw anybody get mad at each other. It was always like, you know, you run into somebody or jam it, and they kind of look at you and go, "Are you having fun?" J.N. Roberts wore football shoulder pads. Nobody had any kind of armor they wore in those days. He also wore like baseball catcher's knee pads. Buck Smith, flat tire. Picking up the line and making the corner. When you're going that fast, it's easy to miss some of the corners and miss some of the markings. Jan misses the corner and catches out of the corner of his eye and gets back on the course without losing much time. Desert racing back then was pretty much virgin desert. It wasn't all whooped out. You could pretty much run a desert race anywhere you wanted to. So that was part of the challenge for the different clubs, was to, you know, find a new area and lay out a new course. Very much club-oriented. There was like the Checkers and the Victors and the Viewfinders and the Shamrocks, and most of them wearing their colors of the club they were in. This is some of the really great helicopter photography that was pretty darn new at the time. As I said before, you know, just hanging out the door of the helicopter with a handheld camera, it was shaking all over the place. Where Nelson and Davy Jones were just an amazing group of people, or amazing team. They got so close to Jan one time, I think, that he actually hit his shoulder on the skid. Mike Burke with a flat, kind of poetic justice. Preston, followed by Whitey Martino. Malcolm Smith, Whitey and I went to the 6-day trials when we were doing on a Sunday. And I think Whitey is living in Sonoma County up in Northern California. most of the clubs had their banners up for the pitting, so the riders, knew where to pull in. Brennan talked to Hobie Alter of Hobie Surfboards, Hobie Cats, etc., one of my old surf buddies, and the guy who actually talked me into covering this race.
On the surface they are, but it's still an individual sport. It's a balanced, fun, thrill sport, especially this riding in the open desert. It's an individual sport, and it's a good group of people, too.
Jan Roberts with a big lead going into one of the checkpoints, followed by Gary Preston. Of the 801 riders that started, only about 400 made it through this checkpoint. Into the pits with Jan Roberts with a pretty good sized lead. Fuel, a drink of water, and whatever else you want to do.
Well, try to keep a cool head and make sure you get a good pit, get your tank full. If your goggles are dirty, wipe them off. This means quite a bit, being able to see, of course. And if you're thirsty, get a quick drink of water. I'd consider 15 seconds a good pit stop.
I think it took Jan a little longer than 15 seconds. Jan getting his tank marked before he goes out to the second loop. Only in a desert race can you get lost in the pits. Jan can't quite pick up the line to know which way the second loop goes. Finally somebody in the crowd points the way to him. Gary Preston in the pits, running in second. Whitey Martino getting a little wheel adjustment. Brendan McClellan, our man in the pits.
Jim, how's it going so far?
Okay, everything's fine except for the front rim.
Good luck. He hit a rock. Congratulations.
That's rough.
He says it's rough. He wants a cigarette. The gas is going to stand by for a fire. We're backing off now. He's canceled the request for a cigarette, and there he goes, number 66. How's it going, Don?
Fine, everything's wonderful.
This is really a tremendous excitement. Goggles wiped off. Water in the mouth. Gas in the gas tank. The pit stops are averaging about 10 seconds. Other motorcycles are roaring by as they go to their respective pits to be gassed up. How's it going out on the track?
Hare,
Not much more than one word or two from each of these drivers as they come into the pit stop. The engine's racing, being gassed up, making last-minute adjustments as one half of the loop of the complete course is being made.
Check this out, pretty darn close. Running in second place was Gary Preston, followed by Bill Bryant on a 250 Greeves. Gary's on a big fire-breathing 650 Triumph. In the tight and twisty stuff, the little 250 Greeves had a big advantage. But in the sand wash, the big Triumphs had the advantage. In fourth place was Larry Berquist on a BSA. Unfortunately, Larry also passed away. J.N. Roberts in one of the final checkpoints. Followed by Gary Preston, who obviously passed Bryant in the wash with more power. And here comes Bill Bryant. Larry Berquist comes through the checkpoint in fourth. By this point, there were only 250 riders left out of the 801 that started. Jan was a carpenter, lived in Sun Valley, California, and was 25 years old at the time. We talked to Jan about his training routine.
To keep in shape for riding, I do a lot of riding. If I can stand on the pegs the whole race, I feel that I have a great advantage over the competition due to the fact that your legs act as a second set of shock absorbers. You can always ride better the first part of the race due to the fact that you aren't tired. When you do get tired, you start getting sloppy and you'll make a lot more mistakes. And if you can't read the terrain fast, you're just not going to go fast. But you have to concentrate at all times. You drop your guard once, you're going to get off. When you get off going fast, you're going to get hurt.
We did this stop motion thing with JN, figuring we were really pretty brilliant to do it. JN, now in his 60s, is still riding motorcycles and riding them very well. The recent Baja 1000, he co-rode with his son, and they finished pretty well. The Husqvarna was a relatively new motorcycle in the U.S. It was imported by a fellow named Edison Dye from San Diego, and Malcolm was one of the first dealers. Of course, we all had to get Huskies because Malcolm was our pal, and he sold them, and they seemed like the secret weapon. But through Edison and the Husqvarna, that was really the start of sort of modern motocross in the United States. We put a helmet camera on Reed Price and sent him out trying to chase JN down. Reed was the guy that had the 90cc Yamaha, and when I got my 200cc Triumph Cub, told me I was going to get killed in that big thing. A couple years later, he was the #1 desert plate holder. Gary Conrad talking about riding in the sand.
Well, secret to sand is speed. You can't beat speed because you get up on top of the sand and then you're just like riding on pavement once you get on top. And if you don't have the speed, then you're in trouble.
When you get toward the end and you get a bottleneck or a deep sand wash, you're getting pretty darn tired. Makes it even harder to get out of the place. Almost every desert race had some killer uphill and killer downhill to sort of spice it up. Some of the downhills, you look over the edge and go, wow, I don't know if I really want to go down there. Here again, Gary Conrad.
Well, just keep the bike upright and then get through it. You might be going slower than the other guys, but if you can get up through it and stay upright without losing your balance, and you'll come out a lot better.
Guy's got a two-piece handlebar. I had a real special relationship with Wide World of Sports. I would shoot the film independently, and they had the right to broadcast it once, and then I would retain all the other rights to the film. So it worked out perfect for me because I could sort of do it independently the way I wanted, and they could broadcast it, and then I could keep all the other rights to the film. While Jan's got a big lead, these guys battling out back in the pack for who knows what place, but they still need water, they're tired, but they want to get to the finish. And Jan Roberts at the finish. There's hardly any spectators in desert racing. Almost everybody there is just another rider or pit crew or your friend. Jan across the line, and Brendan McClellan was right there.
Beautiful, Robbie, beautiful. Greeves. Well, we have that.
Wait a minute, I gotta do it. Slide.
Let me get it, Jim. He's got a beer.
Hey, I got no shock at all, man. Look at that.
You didn't need it.
Gary Preston in second place.
Congratulations.
Good race.
And Larry Berquist in third place on his BSA.
Nice, I just told him to get there.
More?
And fourth overall and first 250 lightweight was Bill Fryan. Brendan McClellan with JN.
Beautiful race. Jay, and how did it go? Riding a 360 Husqvarna.
Well, it was pretty rough the whole course. I mean, you know,
What gave you the most particular trouble?
all the real soft sand and the tight washes back there. Pretty much low gear.
I noticed you've got shoulder pads and shin guards on, and some of the boys I've talked to say they really help.
Yeah, well, I broke my collarbone a few thousand times, so I wear them now, you know, to keep from breaking them again if possible.
Congratulations. Great win. Nice going.
The neat thing about a desert race, when you finish, even though you're bruised and got blisters and tired and dehydrated, you really sort of had a sense of accomplishment that you made the thing. Takes a while to collect all the bikes, if you can find them, because there was about 600 of them out there. The next #1 desert plate holder, but he needs to wear some elbow guards. That's my youngest son Wade, who did the music for this piece, and my wife with my daughter Nancy in the oven. That's my oldest son Dana standing beside that blue car. He's also a filmmaker now, having done surf film Step in Liquid and covered the Bond 1000 with a feature film called Dust to Glory.